Hello everyone. Welcome back to Ly Tu Tien review. Have you ever felt someone's eyes following you, watching your every move, making your skin crawl with an inexplicable fear? Today, Tu Tien experiences something that shakes her to the core. A mysterious woman at the bus station speaks words that pierce through her soul. I used to be like you. What does this cryptic message mean? Who is this stranger? And why does she seem to know Tu Tien's deepest secrets? Stay with us until the end to uncover this chilling mystery. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the mountain marketplace as Tu Tien packed up her remaining vegetables. It had been a good day at the market. The fresh produce from her farm had sold well, and her basket was now filled with empty cloth bags and a small pouch of money. She smiled, thinking of Jack and how proud he would be. Every coin she earned brought them closer to the stable life they both dreamed of. The mountain air was crisp and clean as Tu Tien began her journey home. The winding road stretched before her, flanked by terraced rice fields that glowed golden in the late afternoon light. This was her routine, a path she had walked countless times since Jack had helped her build her new life. Usually, this journey brought her peace, a time to reflect on how far she had come from those dark days when she had nowhere to go. But today felt different. Tu Tien couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It started as a whisper in the back of her mind, a subtle prickling sensation on the back of her neck. She adjusted the basket on her shoulder and quickened her pace, telling herself it was nothing, just exhaustion from a long day of work. Yet the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each step. She glanced over her shoulder. The road behind her was empty, save for a few farmers heading home with their water buffalo. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening, but her heart continued to beat faster, her breath coming in shorter gasps. Tu Tien had learned to trust her instincts. During those terrible months after her first marriage fell apart, her instincts had kept her alive, had warned her when danger was near. The bus station came into view as she rounded the bend. It was a simple structure, just a covered platform where the few buses that serviced this remote mountain region stopped. A small crowd had gathered, people waiting for the evening bus to the next town. Tu Tien didn't need the bus today. Her farm was only another 30-minute walk from here. But she often passed through, sometimes stopping to chat with neighbors or buy a cool drink from the small vendor stand. Today she wished she had taken a different route. As Tu Tien approached the bus station, the feeling of being watched intensified. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for the source of her discomfort. Farmers with their baskets, mothers with children, young men on motorcycles, elderly women gossiping on the benches. Everything seemed normal. Everything except the sensation crawling up her spine. Then she saw her. A middle-aged woman stood directly across from the bus station, separated from Tu Tien by the narrow dirt road. She wasn't waiting for the bus. She wasn't talking to anyone. She was simply standing there, completely still, her eyes fixed unwaveringly on Tu Tien. There was something haunting about her appearance. Her clothes were clean but worn, her hair pulled back tightly, her face marked by lines that spoke of hardship and sorrow. But it was her eyes that truly unsettled Tu Tien. They held a depth of pain and knowledge that seemed to reach across the distance between them. Tu Tien froze. The bustling sounds of the bus station faded into background noise. Despite the crowd of people around her, despite the vendors calling out their wares and children laughing, Tu Tien suddenly felt utterly alone. It was as if an invisible wall had descended, isolating her in this moment with this strange woman whose gaze she could not escape. Tu Tien's first instinct was to look away, to pretend she hadn't noticed the woman's intense stare, to simply continue walking home. But something held her in place. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was the recognition of something familiar in those sad eyes. Or perhaps it was simply the courage she had built over these past months with Jack. The strength that came from finally having someone who believed in her. She took a deep breath and crossed the road. As Tu Tien approached, she could see the woman more clearly. She appeared to be in her late 40s or early 50s, though hardship had a way of aging people beyond their years in these mountains. Her hands were rough and calloused, the hands of someone who had worked hard all her life. There was a slight tremor in her fingers, whether from cold or emotion, Tu Tien couldn't tell. The woman's posture was rigid, as if she was holding herself together through sheer force of will. "Why are you watching me?" Tu Tien asked, keeping her voice steady despite the nervousness fluttering in her chest. "Do I know you?" The woman didn't answer immediately. She continued to stare at Tu Tien with those penetrating eyes, as if she were looking not at her, but through her, seeing something beyond the present moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "I used to be like you." The words hung in the air between them. Simple words, 5 small words, yet they carried a weight that made Tu Tien's blood run cold. There was something in the way the woman said them, a tone of warning mixed with regret, of knowledge gained through bitter experience. "What do you mean?" Tu Tien managed to ask, though her throat had gone dry. The woman's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. It was an expression of profound sadness, of understanding, born from suffering. "You think you've escaped. You think you found safety, found happiness. You think the past can't reach you here." Tu Tien felt her heart hammering against her ribs. How did this stranger know anything about her past? About her escape from her first marriage? About the suffering she had endured? Jack knew her story, and Mother Loy knew some of it. But she had been so careful not to share her pain with others in the village. She had wanted to start fresh, to be known for who she was now, not for what she had survived. "I don't understand," Tu Tien whispered. "Who are you? How do you know me?" The woman shook her head slowly. "I don't know you specifically, child, but I know your story because I lived it. Different details, same suffering. I too ran from a husband's family that treated me like dirt. I too found someone kind who offered me hope. I too thought I could build a new life and leave the old one behind." The woman's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "But the past doesn't stay buried. It finds ways to resurface. And when it does, it brings everything crashing down." Tu Tien wanted to argue, to insist that her situation was different, that Jack was different, that their love was strong enough to overcome anything. But the words stuck in her throat, because somewhere deep inside, in a place she didn't like to acknowledge, she harbored the same fear. The fear that her happiness was too fragile, too new, too good to last. "What happened to you?" Tu Tien asked quietly. The woman looked away for the first time, her gaze drifting to the mountains in the distance. "What always happens to women like us." The past came back. People talked. Rumors spread. The kind man who had promised to protect me grew tired of defending me. His family turned against me. I lost everything again. Only this time it hurt more, because I had dared to hope. Tu Tien felt tears pricking her own eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" The woman turned back to her, and for a moment her expression softened with something that might have been compassion. "Because I wish someone had warned me. Because I see you with your basket of vegetables and your hopeful eyes. And I remember when I was the same. Because maybe, just maybe, you'll be luckier than I was. But you need to be prepared. You need to protect what you have while you still can." Before Tu Tien could respond, before she could ask more questions, the woman turned and began walking away. She moved slowly, her shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible burden. "Wait!" Tu Tien called out. "What's your name? How can I find you?" But the woman didn't turn back. She continued walking until she disappeared around the bend in the road, leaving Tu Tien standing alone as the crowd at the bus station continued their activities, oblivious to the encounter that had just shaken her world. Tu Tien stood frozen for several long moments after the woman disappeared. Around her, life continued as normal. The bus arrived with a rumble of its engine. Passengers climbed aboard with their bags and baskets. Vendors called out last-minute offers for snacks and drinks. But Tu Tien felt disconnected from it all, as if she were watching from behind a thick pane of glass. Finally, her legs remembered how to move. She turned toward home, walking mechanically, her mind replaying the encounter over and over. "I used to be like you." What did it mean? Was it a warning, a prophecy, or simply the bitter reminiscence of a woman who had lost hope? By the time Tu Tien reached the small house Jack had built for her, dusk had settled over the mountains. Warm light glowed from the windows, and she could see Jack's silhouette moving inside. He must have come to check on her, perhaps to help prepare dinner. The sight should have comforted her, but instead, the woman's words echoed in her mind. "The kind man who had promised to protect me grew tired of defending me." No. Jack was different. Jack was steadfast and true. He had proven his devotion to her countless times. He had stood by her when she had nothing, had built this home for her with his own hands, had defended her against gossip and judgment from those who questioned her past. But what if the woman was right? What if everyone's patience had limits? Tu Tien pushed open the door, forcing a smile onto her face. Jack looked up from the vegetables he was washing, his face breaking into a warm grin. "There you are, I was starting to worry. Good day at the market?" "Yes, very good," Tu Tien replied, setting down her basket. She moved to help him with dinner preparations, grateful for the familiar routine. Jack studied her face. "Are you all right? You seem quiet." "Just tired," she said, which wasn't entirely a lie. It was a long day. He accepted this explanation, though she could see the concern lingering in his eyes. They prepared dinner together in comfortable silence, but Tu Tien's mind was elsewhere. As they ate, as they cleaned up, as they prepared for bed, the woman's words continued to haunt her. Later that night, Tu Tien lay awake while Jack slept beside her. Through the window, she could see the stars scattered across the night sky, the same stars that had witnessed all her struggles and all her small victories. She thought about her journey from that terrible first marriage to this moment. She thought about all the pain she had endured, all the nights she had cried herself to sleep in borrowed shelters, all the times she had wondered if life would ever get better. And she thought about the woman at the bus station, who had once had hope just like her, who had once believed in new beginnings, who had lost everything anyway. Tu Tien's hand found Jack's in the darkness, holding on tight. Whatever the future held, whatever secrets or challenges lay ahead, she would face them. But the seed of fear had been planted, and she knew it would not be easily uprooted. And so Tu Tien's day ends with more questions than answers. Who was the mysterious woman at the bus station? Was her warning genuine, or simply the bitter projection of her own failed dreams? And most importantly, what secrets from Tu Tien's past might still be lurking, waiting to resurface and threaten the fragile happiness she has built with Jack? Sometimes the most frightening encounters are not with enemies, but with mirrors reflecting our deepest fears. The woman's words have planted doubt in Tu Tien's heart, a shadow over her hope. But Tu Tien has survived worse than doubt. She has survived abandonment, cruelty, and despair. Perhaps this, too, she will overcome. Yet as she lies in the darkness, holding on to Jack's hand like a lifeline, she cannot shake the chill that has settled deep in her bones. The woman's face, her words, her warning, all of it lingers like a ghost that refuses to be dismissed. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. What do you think the woman's warning means? Will Tu Tien's past truly come back to haunt her? Don't miss the next episode to find out what happens next. Please like, subscribe, and share Ly Tu Tien review with your friends. See you soon.